Mega Man. Hello and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Mega Man 4 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Some things up front. There's going to be a written review of this, which you can check out before, after, or instead of this video review. It's linked in the description. Also, I played this off of the Mega Man Legacy Collection on the 3DS, if that matters to you. Well, as this is the fourth game in the Mega Man series, I'm going to assume that at this point, if you haven't already, check out my previous reviews to catch up on this. Or, I'm going to hope that you at least already know about Mega Man before jumping into this, just so I don't have to repeat the same things, 6 fucking times. Or whatever. I guess this would have been the fourth time if I did it every time. That's pretty much it, I think. So let's get to the fucking thing. The Mega Man 4 is the fourth Mega Man game, and there's a whole plot thing in the beginning where I guess it has a nice opening that explains basically the premise of Mega Man and kind of recaps what happened in the previous 3 games anyways, which is something that I guess if you haven't played the other ones, it'll kind of it'll bring you up to speed right away anyways. But after foiling Dr. Wily's plans 3 times, there is a new villain that comes up out of nowhere that starts attacking Mega Man. Instead of just trying to take over the world, it actually has someone coming after him. Mega Man just has to defend himself against, you guessed it, 8 Master Robots. And so the gameplay, pretty much like the other ones, going through the stages, fighting the robots, using their weaknesses, yada yada yada, doing that stuff all over again. There's a lot of recurring stuff here. I think as far as new things go, there are these 2 different items you can get that I guess I'll admit I didn't get them in the game because I didn't know about them until after the main stages. Because after you beat the main stages, you go to the set of linear final stages. I didn't know those were there, because there were some branching paths, which is kind of a new feature as well. Or if, it kind of existed before a little, but not this heavily. There are 2 secret items you can get. One is a thing that creates balloon platforms, kind of like one of the items from Mega Man 2 that creates, floating platforms for you to walk on. And then there's one that gives you this wire that makes you, hang on the ceilings, I guess. I haven't actually experienced them because, like I said, I missed them. I heard about them, from a thing online. I was like, hey, these are other things in the game. I was like, oh, whoops. So, sorry about that also, that bit of information. I didn't personally use them. I can't speak too much about those, but those are in there. And those are some additions. Slightly tweaked the way Rush Jet works. I don't think I used Rush Marine in this at all, but they tweaked how Rush Jet works in that he just goes forward when you go on him, and you can move him up and down and still jump off of him, but you don't have free control over him, so it's a little different. Also, the big one I think here, besides of course having a different villain, the villain here is a guy called Dr. Cossack, or Cossack, again, didn't pronounce it to me. So yeah, it's not Dr. Wily for a fucking change. The main one though is you'll notice that right away, and also there's a ability to charge up your Mega Buster. It's a new Mega Buster. That creates some new mechanics there as well. So those are, just you hold down the fire button for a few seconds, you can charge up your shot and make it more powerful with your main gun. And those are, mostly the changes, other than some other, I guess there's also a kind of a cleaned up interface when you pause and go select items and stuff. Most of the rest of stuff is, it's pretty standard, like I say, it's standard stuff. Not much else to say there. I like it. It's more Mega Man stuff. There's different bosses, and there's just more levels, and it's just getting more Mega Man. I like the charge shot I like that mechanic. It adds a little bit to it where it's like, oh, like you charge it up, and it's good for, some enemies are kind of tough. They take more than one hit from like your standard shots, and sometimes you don't always get the most, like you have to like jump and hit them or shoot them at the right time, and you won't have that vantage point at the same like altitude or something for long enough to do a bunch of little shots to kill them. So you want to do a charge shot to get rid of them quickly while you can. Sometimes there are times when like doing charge shot is going to do less damage trying to do multiple charge shots than you could get from just jamming on the fire button. Also, the risk versus reward of you have your charge shot, and you you charge it up, but it's like you get hit, and you could lose you lose your charge. But like if you charge up and hit someone with that, it does more damage than doing those other shots. But if you get hit and lose the charge, then you could have done more damage just doing the standard shots in that amount of time rather than doing none, charging up and failing to charge that up during that. So it does create an interesting dynamic with that. I do think that's an interesting thing they put in. I don't know, having a different villain, I guess, is a nice change of pace. Having also the idea that there's, someone coming after Mega Man specifically rather than just attacking, trying to take over the world or something, is a kind of neat change, at least from that outside. But it doesn't really make that much of a difference. You still play the game the same way, but that's an interesting idea, I guess, as a concept. And I also think the art's pretty good in this one. It seems a little more cartoony, I guess. It's a little brighter, more vibrant, and I liked it. I thought it visually looks really good, I think. Of course, the control's solid. Like, a lot of stuff is stuff I liked about other Mega Man games. I also liked about this one. But, I mean, it does have some issues. Like, there's not a lot that goes, that's great about this. Like I say, the biggest innovations are the charge shot is pretty much the biggest innovation here. And a lot of other stuff is just recurring from other games. There is a point where I guess it's sort of a spoiler, but it ends up that Dr. Wily is behind the thing with the Dr. Cossack guy, so you have to go to Wily ultimately anyways. Not that surprising, I guess, but it does kind of negate the whole oh cool, someone new kind of feeling to it. I don't know. There's no second set of Robot Masters. They didn't lift that. We're using let's dig up some old Robot Masters and throw them in for extra gameplay stuff. They didn't dig that up from Mega Man 3. They also didn't continue the cliffhanger thing where at the end of Mega Man 3 you find out that there's Proto Man is the guy that was in there, and he's apparently was another robot made by Dr. Light before Mega Man, calling him Mega Man's brother, even though I don't think that's how it works. And it's that's cool. At the end of the game, you see a thing of Proto Man up there. You find that out, and you're like, "Oh, there's gonna be some cool stuff with Proto Man in here." And he shows up in one scene for 2 seconds. I don't believe he says anything in the scene. Then he's gone, and you don't really do jack shit with him in here. So what the fuck was the point of setting that thing up if you weren't gonna, use it in here? I don't know. It largely suffers from that, it's just not very innovative or anything. It also doesn't have, even though there's a screen that tells you about weapons when you get them, you got these weapons, it doesn't give you the tips on, you can charge up certain weapons, and you can, there's one that's the bomb thing, you can, shoot and, choose when to detonate it. It doesn't tell you can do that. It doesn't tell you that you can shoot Pharaoh Man's thing in, multiple directions or charge it. And anything that's not just a standard shot, I think, should have a little tip on, hey, you could do this with it. Maybe that would be a good idea to put in. It's weird that they don't. And also, it's kind of strange that they didn't have a charged up version for all of the weapons, if charging was a new kind of mechanic to be using in the game. I don't know. That could have been better. I don't know. I just feel like it's one where it's largely, I guess, the biggest problem with this is that it's not a big improvement. It doesn't do a whole lot more or a whole lot different. So it ends up being just kind of it's largely just more of the same. And that's Mega Man 4 really in a nutshell. There's not a ton to say because in the context of the other Mega Man games, you kind of get the idea. I don't know. Like I wouldn't really recommend it to newcomers necessarily because it's there are better examples of what to do. Not that it's bad. Like you might like the music more than I did. That's another thing I forgot to mention the other part. Oops, but I don't really like the music that much in this one, which is kind of a shocker for a Mega Man game. But a lot of it just made me feel meh. But that's very subjective. You might like it, so that might not be a real big thing to bring up anyways. Also, when are they going to fix the fucking thing when you pause and unpause it makes you fall off the ladders? It's a minor thing. You can work around it, but goddamn it, Capcom. Fix that fucking thing. It's the 4th game. Jesus. But yeah, anyways, like I was saying, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily for a newcomer. Not that it'd be bad, but there are better ones. I guess if you're a Mega Man fan, you may have played it, but maybe you never, you missed out on it. You never played it yet, or you kind of dismissed it, played it a bit, and you're like, fuck this, and you didn't really, play it through it. And like, I would recommend it for those people to kind of like play it again or check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. Because if you like Mega Man, you'll probably like it. It probably won't be your favorite Mega Man game, but it could be. And it's not bad. It's fun. It works. And it's more Mega Man. It's just more bosses, more levels, and the same, solid gameplay. It's hard to complain much about it, other than that contextually it's just not, amazing. And I guess, I don't know, I'd probably say, it's in the $10 to $15 range, I would say, for getting it. If you get it for that much or less, that's a good one. And it's in various forms, for you to be able to find it. Give it a shot. It's one that's, it's worth looking at. Just not worth, going out of your way to get, I guess, as far as Mega Man games are concerned, is probably how I would put it. And when you're talking about outside of Mega Man games, just as a game, then yeah, it's a pretty good game. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. And hopefully Mega Man 5 does something, a little more interesting, stands out more. And I'm really hoping they do something with this whole weird story thing they set up in 3, because they kind of just threw it out the fucking window in this one, didn't they? I don't know. Fingers crossed. Mega Man.